Yeah, I think it should be now. You see it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'd like to, again, tremendous Akara Satov that I have for everybody who comes on every single morning for us. It's actually unbelievable. We probably have learned from more teachers in the last 6 months than we did in our whole life. So really such incredible Hakara Satov to learn from the perspective of a woman and to be really hearing the voices and the pneumius of every one of these women has been spectacular. So thank you, Devorah, for coming on this morning. Devorah is a parenting consultant and a licensed grief and bereavement counselor. She has been lecturing for over 20 years on issues relating to the power of women, and her life's passion is to educate women as to how much they are capable of and to not be afraid of their koach. So with that, I feel very honored and privileged to have Devorah Wolfson. Devorah, are you here or did you get kicked off? 1 minute. No, I think she got kicked off.
Or she's muted?
Yeah,
No, she's not. No, she's 1
here.
second. Let me.
No, so I'm saying, oh, I'm there.
Oh,
Is that that?
there you are. Okay, so I'm just gonna mute other people. Okay, there you are. Could you unmute, Devorah?
1 second.
But you're coming in as a
You
Let
have
me
two
hear
phones
again.
on?
Yeah, you have two. Yeah, you have two things on.
I'm shutting the other phone. I just wanted to make sure that you were able to get the Robert Wolfson one.
Okay. And Devorah, thank you so much. Like, you're making a wedding in 3 weeks for your daughter. You're in Lakewood, and you came on to do this. So thank you so much, Devorah. Really. And mazel tov to you.
Thank you. I mean, like you can see me on the Robert iPhone, right?
Yes, yes, perfect. It's perfect. I'm going to put myself on mute. You go ahead.
Okay. So first of all, I have to share with everyone that I don't think I've ever had such a moving morning. I don't want to cry because like I have to speak now, but I am so honored and I'm very, very proud of all of us because it's not as simple. It's not a small thing that it says, "B'schus nashim tzidkanios," is the goal is going to come. And I really feel that quietly, slowly, when we recognize and we realize that we matter more than we could imagine, is when very magical, powerful things happen for all of Klal Yisrael. And I really believe it's on our backs. And sitting here, listening to you beautiful women this morning, and Naomi, you speak beautifully. I'm very, very, very emotional. So I just want to thank everyone for this sechus. So before I begin in giving over things that worked in my life when I was struggling and going through things, I just want to say how Hashem is unbelievable. The Gemara asks, what is Hashem busy doing a whole day? And the answer is Hashem is busy doing shidduchim. He's mezavig zavugim. So when I was younger, I thought it meant that Hashem is like a matchmaker between boys and girls. But it means something so much deeper. Hashem does shidduchim between all of humanity, where you're supposed to meet the right person, the right book, the right mentor, the right opportunity. So my grandfather, Shalom, was an unbelievable person. His name was Naftali Tzvi Rubin, comes from a beautiful Hasidic family, Dumbrov, and my grandmother's from Kamarna. And my grandfather used to always tell us as children, the women, that if you do not have time to daven, which is understandable, at least every single day say nishmas, besides the fact that it's such a beautiful tefillah, the powers, because the Arizal explains that the aleph base and the combination of the aleph base has nuclear power that we don't even realize. And so I took it seriously, but not really. And I grew up in the Beis Yaakov system. And for me, at least, davening was usually a subject where the teacher walked around. And if you were davening well, you got a check. And if you weren't davening, you got a line. So I learned from a very young age to make sure that when the teacher is passing by me to look into the siddur. So it wasn't until years later that I actually appreciated tefillah. I was in New York with my daughter shopping for the chasana. So the first thing we did, I feel it's very important that every Jewish home should have a substantial library of Sfarim that women can read also, not just the Shulchan Aruch and the Gemaras, which is vital, but I just feel it's important to also have Sfarim that the women can read. So I went to Eichler's and I was buying Sfarim for my daughter, and my grandmother came over to me and she said to me, Dvairala, I have this unbelievable book that I've been reading and it changed my life and I want to buy it for you. And she bought me the book by Rabbi Besser, Nishmat Kol Chai. I said, okay, beautiful, sounds nice. I love to learn. So I was reading it on Shabbos, and just each word was more beautiful than the next. Things we already know, but we forget. And the next day, Naomi reached out to me to ask me if I'd like to give a class for the morning for the Nishmat class. And I wanted to share that, how Hashem makes things happen exactly when and where. And these little stories should all give us chizuk that when Hashem wants something from us, he has many, many shluchim to get us to where we're supposed to be. So with that, I say thank you. So I'm going to start with the story. And off that story, hopefully I'm going to be able to give everyone a tool that for me was life altering and is life altering. Once upon a time, there was a man and he was walking in the forest. And as he's walking in the forest, he hears this child crying hysterically. And the child is crying and crying. And the man is looking in the woods to see, where is this child? How can I help this child? And the child is crying and the man is looking. And finally, to his horror, he sees a child that is sitting on the ground of the forest, tied to a tree. His hands are tied behind him. His waist has a rope around him, and this boy is crying. The man is hysterical. He feels like, I just saved someone. And he goes to untie the child, and he realizes the ropes are not tied. They're just wrapped around him, but it's very easy for this child to step out of his binds. So the man looks at the child, and the man says to the child, what's going on? Are you okay? So the child's like, I'm not okay. I'm really not okay. I'm playing with my friends and my friends left me here. And the man says to the child, that's awful. And they tied me to the tree. And the man said, that's awful. And I can't get out. And the man says, that's really awful. But child, I want you to know you're not tied at all. The ropes are just around you. And all you have to do is get up and you're not tied to the tree anymore. And at this point, the child is hysterical. And he says to the man, but you don't understand. We're playing with my friends, and my friend said I'm the horse. And if I'm tied to the tree, I'm the horse. But if I get up, I won't be the horse anymore. But I don't want to be tied to the tree. This story was told to me by my father when I was struggling with different areas of growth and different things that were going on in my life. And I thought about that story for a moment, and I realized and I recognized that the only thing that keeps us in a role that we don't want to be in is our fear of not being in that role. If you don't want to be a horse, simply stop being a horse. But this child was afraid that then his friends wouldn't play with him. How many times we live a certain life, how many times we are in a certain matzav because we are afraid to actually own the fact that we're not horses, that we are actually unbelievably powerful beings. So that story got me thinking. And I was thinking, why am I tied to an ideology, or why am I tied to a situation that I'm struggling with? And there are many times in life where you're at a crossroads and you actually don't know which path to choose, because all the paths are equally an option. It's not like one choice is going to be bad or against the Torah or not proper, and one point is the proper way. Then it's easy to make the decision. It may be emotionally difficult, but the word Torah means ha'ara, which is instructions. So if you're lost and you need to ask directions, Hashem created a Torah that is the directions for us. If you're an espresso machine, comes with an instruction manual. And if you read the instructional manual, you'll have great coffee. You don't have to, you can figure it out on your own, but then you won't know how all the buttons work. So if an espresso machine comes with an instruction manual in 6 languages, no less, don't you think HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who created the most complicated machine, which is the human condition, don't you think HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us with an instruction manual? Now, you may not like to read manuals. You may like to figure it out on your own. And especially if you're like me and you have authority issues, you don't want anyone telling you what to do. You could try it on your own. It's not going to work. Why? Because the maker who made the machine knows the codes of how it operates. But there are some times when you are in a situation in your life and there are multiple options and each one seems completely viable, even according to Torah. So how do you know the right thing to do? Not everything is so black and white. Since Adam and Chava ate from the tree, there are multiple shades of gray. So how do you weed out the black from the white? And this was something that I was struggling with. And I was looking for some hadracha and for some guidance. And I found it in the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful of places. So I was doing Parsha on Shabbos, and I was being Mavrish Sedra, and it was the Parsha of Parshas B'Shalach, when Paro sends Klal Yisrael out of Egypt. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Paro says, just go and get out of here. So we know, imagine, we're talking about the most oppressive, difficult, choking. The word Mitzrayim means meitzar, constriction. They were in the most abusive, constricted of situations. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu created this expansiveness of Geula for them. So they leave Mitzrayim and they are, on the one hand, they're still recovering from the trauma of all their years in Mitzrayim. They're a little bit in a shock that this is actually happening. They're struggling with many different emotions because a lot of their family members did not make it out. So when we're learning these stories, we need to recognize and understand we're talking about real humans like you and I. Imagine what they must have felt. And finally, 3 days later, they're starting to relax. They're actually out of Mitzrayim. And now the whole entire nation can breathe a collective sigh of relief. Right when they think that they're in the clear, all of a sudden they hear a really loud noise and there's sand that's being kicked up all around them. And they realize that the Egyptians, the Mitzrayim, are coming after them. Now, I want everyone to really understand what this means psychologically. We read the story year after year, Pesach after Pesach, Parsha after Parsha, and we know the ending of the story. We know the sea splits. But put yourself in that matzav. Remember, the women had 6 children at a time. So imagine a family has 36 children. They're finally out with everything. They're singing, they're dancing, and their abusers are chasing after them. My grandmother was in Auschwitz, and she speaks about the death march, and she speaks about when the Russians came. And I always think, could you imagine they finally are free? They left the camps, and imagine if they see the Nazi war killing machine tanks, cars, their jeeps, coming back with the dogs to bring them back into the camps. What do you do? How do you feel? These are real emotions. And even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu manifested himself in Mitzrayim, it was still a very, very real, traumatic feeling that everyone's going through. So as I'm reading this story, the Rebbe says that if you live with the Chumash and you live with Rashi, you will find answers to your life if you open yourself up enough. So I'm reading this account and I say to myself, Taka, what did they do? So the Rebbe brings down an unbelievable conversation that happened within Klal Yisrael. And this is a conversation that I can be sure each and every single one of you has had inside yourself with the different personalities that you have. Now, it doesn't make you, it doesn't mean you have multiple personalities. Every single person at any given moment has a different way that they express their midos and their emotions. And that's the conflict of life. And only through recognizing which voices matter is how we can get healthy. So it's brought down as follows, that there were 4 different suggestions what Klal Yisrael should do. And each one was equally smart. Each one was equally possible. And each one would have had a different outcome, but each one according to even Torah and according to even human psychology makes sense. One group of people said, okay, we had a nice 3 days, but we can't do this again. How about we go back to Mitzrayim, we apologize for leaving, we say, no, we only meant to go for the 3 days, we're on our way back, and if we behave really, really well, maybe they won't abuse us so badly. I work with a lot of women. This is usually the first thought in a woman's mind when she needs to get out of a bad situation. Maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe if I apologize and go back, things can be okay. So the origin, the nakuda of this comes from the story here at Kriyas Yamsuf. There was another group of people, and another group of people said, what? Go back? Never. We rather die as free people than go back as slaves. We have weapons because the Torah says, Va'alu chamushim, they went out. It means only 1/5 of them survived. Only 20% of Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim, but it also means chamushim means they had weapons. They said, we will never again be slaves. We will fight to the death, even if it kills us. We're not going back to be slaves. Makes sense also. Another group said, fight? We can't fight. We're slaves, children of slaves. We don't even know how to hold this sword. We don't even know what to do with it. Not only that, we're not people of war. We can't, like, how are we going to do this? This is too much for us. We give up. I think all of us should just throw ourselves into the Yam Suf, throw ourselves into the river, into the sea, and we'll drown. But at least we drown with our own hands and we won't have to be tortured and abused. Doesn't that make sense to you also? A 4th option was, everybody run, save yourself. You go west, you go east, you go there. And as many of you that can save yourselves, because the Egyptians can't kill everyone, run, hide, stay in hiding. And one day you can come out of hiding and maybe there'll be a continuation to us. Every single one of these options are real. What are they supposed to do? They're trapped. The sea is here. The desert is there. The enemy is coming from behind them with chariots. What did the Jews have? Donkeys? Camels? Many children. The Egyptians were coming just with the strongest men that survived. We have nursing children. What are they supposed to do? Now, each one is an option and everybody's arguing. Then, says the Rebbe, something beautiful happened. They said, one second, let's dive in. We have a tradition from our forefathers, from Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that when we are in danger, we should call out to Hashem. So they had a big asifa. And now, understand, all this is happening simultaneously at once within everybody, micro and macro. Let's dive in, let's scream, let's pierce the heavens, and they all start screaming. Why are they screaming? Because they're panicking, which is normal. So you would think to run and turn to tefillah when you're panicking, isn't that exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants? And they're screaming and they're davening and they're crying because they realize they're hopeless. They're helpless. And Moshe Rabbeinu comes to them, and when I learned this, It was such a paradigm shift. It was as if I was underwater my whole entire life. And this is the first time I took a breath of fresh air. And every time I give this over to women, I have tears in my eyes because I want everyone to recognize and realize what a game changer this is. It saved my life and it saves my life. Moshe Rabbeinu tells Klal Yisrael, Atem tacharishon. Everybody be quiet. V'Hashem yilachem lachem. And Hashem is going to wage war for you. Hashem is going to save you. Atem tacharishon. Even davening, sometimes you're making too much noise because you're not even concentrating on what you're saying. You're just panicking. I know, I've done that. Atem tacharishon. Be quiet. Be quiet at this time. And why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu use the word tacharishon? Basically, nowhere else in Tanakh is the word tacharishon used. What does tacharishon mean, and how does it work? So, once Moshe Rabbeinu told Klal Yisrael, "Atem tacharishon, stop it, stop screaming, stop planning, stop compromising, stop making deals with Hashem, stop organizing, stop facilitating, just make yourself so quiet so that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can come inside." And what happened? Something that nobody thought of. They thought they'll fight the Egyptians, they'll appease the Egyptians, they'll commit mass suicide, they'll run and hide, they'll save themselves. Did anyone dream that the sea is going to split? Such a thing was never heard of. It didn't exist, a sea splitting. When Klal Yisrael got quiet, a wind came and they kept quiet and the sea split. How many of us in our lives find ourselves stuck and we're like, we have nowhere to go. We're not getting out of this. Whether it's difficulty with shidduchim, difficulty with help, difficulty with parnasa, it's a mitzrayim, it's a meitzar. And we all have different ways of how we're going to figure it out. And sometimes Hashem says, trust me, you're making too much noise. You're making too much noise here, and you're making too much noise here, and you're making too much noise here, so you're not letting me show you what to do. Stop a minute. I want to show you. You ever have it where your child is hysterical because they want something, and you're holding it to give it to them, but they're still in the throes of a crazy tantrum, so they don't even know the thing that they're asking for they actually have, because they're so involved in the emotion. So what does tacharishon mean? So when I saw this word, I said, I'm going to, and I actually commissioned the painter to paint me a huge painting. I'll post it if I can, just so everyone should see it. It's a beautiful Kriyas Yamsuf, an abstract, and it says tacharishon. The minute you walk in my house, you see it, because I want everyone to ask me, what does that mean? So I can explain it. What is tacharishon? Tacharishon, the shoresh, the root word of tacharishon is cheresh. What is cheresh? Cheresh means two things. First, it means deaf. Make yourself so quiet that you are deaf to all the negativity. You are deaf to all the doomsday scenarios. You are deaf to what you think reality is, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is l'malam min hateva. You know what l'malam min hateva means? Hashem is above reality. So Hashem can create opportunities and geula that is above reality. Make yourself so quiet. It also means that if somebody insults you or somebody hurts you, be quiet. Don't answer back, because the power of your power will lie in the fact of you not engaging in any kind of negativity. So be deaf to your own biases. Be deaf to other people's interpretation of who you are. Why be the horse tied to the tree if you don't want to be the horse, but you're scared to not live as a horse? It's scary to live your truth. It's scary to actually grow up and own your existence. It's scary to be so in touch with your Tzelem Elokim that you actually realize that you are an ambassador of light, joy, freedom, love. Scary. It's much easier to be a slave. It's much easier to be a prisoner. Everyone tells you what to do. And they say, well, I can't help it. It's terrible and I have a terrible matzav. Having an amazing matzav causes you tremendous responsibility. Be deaf to all the voices in your head that tell you that you can't. You know what the truth is? You probably can't. You can't. But Hashem can. And Shluchei Adam Kimoso, if you really want to live in a way that you are Hashem's ambassador and you are Hashem's advertisement, you have to be Matzliach, because Hashem is Kulo Matzliach. Hashem is always successful. The second thing Chayresh means is to plow. It's one of the Lamites Malachos. It's one of the 39 Malachos on Shabbos. You cannot plow. What is plowing? Plowing is taking the earth, pulling it up, digging it over. Tacharishon. You know how quiet you should be inside and to other people? Be so quiet that you give yourself a chance to dig deep. Humans have capacity to spread wide and dig deep. You can't do both at the same time. If you want to dig deep, you have to be quiet. In silence is where all growth takes place. Did you ever see a mighty tree grow? Can't even see it. Like one day it's big. Like, how did that happen? You look back at pictures of your children, you're like, wait a second, they used to be so little. What happened? I didn't see their skin stretching and their skeletons growing. It happens silently. All growth happens silently. So at that point, when Moshe Rabbeinu tells Klal Yisrael, Atem tacharishon, stop making so much noise. Now, afterwards, after you're saved, then the tefillah of Oz Yashir, where everyone is bursting into the same song because everyone hit the same reality. And who knew this? Miriam knew this years before because she brought tambourines along because she knew they were going to be saved. Everyone hoped they were going to be saved, but the whole entire nation was being carried on the backs of Miriam, who got the nevuah 40 years earlier, 80 years earlier. So Tacharishon is a thing. If you have an argument with a friend, don't respond right away. Don't defend your position. Listen, maybe there's something she's saying that is true. If you have a negative personality in your life that you cannot, they have to be in your life. Doesn't mean you have to listen to every word they say. What does Hashem think of you? Ask yourself that. What does Hashem think of me right now? And if you feel you love yourself deeply, not in the superficial way, it won't matter because you will know your truth. And if you know your truth, Hashem, and you know what? Klal Yisrael didn't even have to look backwards and see what happened to the Egyptians. It didn't matter. They just walked forwards. Hashem gave them a gift that they were able to see that they were truly free. And that's the secret of Tacharishon. Now, how do I know it's true? Besides the fact that I know it's true. I've tried it. And there's a story of the widow woman when Eliyahu came to her and she had no money and she had no nothing. And she only had one small jug of oil. And Elisha told her, bring all the vessels that you can from your neighbors and let's start pouring. And let's start pouring. And what's the first thing that they do? The children, when they bring all the jugs, they can start pouring the oil, which never stopped. They close the doors. Why? Why do they close the doors? Because miracles love, exist, manifest in privacy. If you talk about something, it won't necessarily happen. But why do we talk? We talk because we need to spread wide. But if you want to spread deep and you want something real and you need a shidduch for yourself or for your children, you need parnasa for yourself or for your husband, you need a refuah shalema. Ask people to daven, but don't overshare. Don't overtalk because miracles need privacy. When the Navi wanted to know he was getting a Dvar Hashem, he heard big winds, hurricanes, tornadoes, and he kept on waiting. Okay, Hashem's going to talk to me now because it's like there's a big bend. Where does Hashem come? Kol Dama Daka. in a very thin whisper. You want to know why? Real power doesn't have to pump itself up. It doesn't have to advertise. We make a bracha every single day, Shalo Asani, a Shasani Kirtso no. So I remember as a girl, I was reading the Siddur and I see it says Shalo Asani Isha. And I was like, what? Okay, this doesn't make sense to me. Why in the world is there a bracha for a man to say, thank you, you didn't make me a woman? I found that was very confusing. Confusing because I knew that Hashem, I didn't have an issue with Hashem. I knew I didn't understand something and it really bothered me. It's like somebody getting up and saying, oh, thank you, Hashem, you didn't make me Devorah. It's a little insulting, no? And what bracha do we get? So let me say, thank you, Hashem, you didn't make me a man. And then it's equal. But no, that's not the bracha. The bracha we say is Shastani Kirtsono. So I thought, oh, okay, men are the most important. And okay, thank you for giving me what you gave me. Like we get the scraps. I didn't understand. Until years later, I was in my 30s and I read, and I wish I would have written down where I learned this vart because I use it constantly. I empower my girls with it, my biological children, and all of my adoptive souls. What does Sha'asani Kirtsono mean? Shasani Kirtsono doesn't mean, Hashem, you made me how you wanted to make me and I don't have a choice and I'll make the best of it. Can't mean that. Hashem doesn't do that. Hashem is perfect in every capacity, and Hashem doesn't make second class, secondary projects, especially if we're talking about women as a whole. I want to ask everyone a question. Who does everything and barely gets any credit? Who does all the science projects? Who writes all the book reports? Who does the snacks? Who does the cooking? Who does the cleaning? Who does the laundry? I remember I never learned how to sew. So I remember my daughter one time needed, her skirt was too long. I was a genius. I put duct tape. I'm the queen of finding the quickest way to do it. I figured I realized you can cook rice in a microwave long before they ever put it on the boxes that you can do it. I'm always the queen of trying to find, the shortest way to do things. Who does all these things? Barely gets any credit? A mother. But I want to ask you a deeper question. Who does everything for everyone and barely gets any credit? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At best, we thank him afterwards. Okay, thank you, Hashem. That was really nice. Thank you. I'll call you next time I need you. At worst, we're like, God, why you do this to me? You're picking on me. Oh, I have a horrible life, but I guess it's a tikkun because Hashem does everything. I want you to know, if I was God, Chas v'shalom, and I made a sunset every single night, I would sign my name on the bottom. Hashem is living in a world where very, very, very few powerful people, but very few people acknowledge his existence. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, when we say the bracha Shasani Kirtso, no, girls, you don't understand how powerful this is. Thank you, Hashem, that you made me just like you. I'm like God. I can do everything for my family, for Klal Yisrael, and I don't need the credit. That's Tacharishon. Tacharishon is, do you want to be right or do you want to get it right? If you want to be right, argue your point, fight, blow everything up, and you'll be right. But you didn't get it right. Tacharishon teaches us so many deep messages. Stop crying in the forest. You're not tied to the tree. And if your friends only want you to be a horse, you don't have to be a horse. You get to decide what you are. And if you don't like the game that they're playing, you can create a new game. You can create another game. And every single revolution and every single evolution has only been successful if we honestly own our truth and move towards that in beautiful silence. All of our Gedolim, I've never, ever heard of a Gadol Hador campaigning to be the Gadol Hador. You just wake up one morning and it just happens. And you're like, wait a minute. We didn't really hear of this person before. But you know what? When somebody is quiet enough that they actually can hear the whisper of Hashem, Nothing less than godless can happen. One more thought before I say good Shabbos, and I thank all of you for this unbelievable zechus and opportunity. I'm humbled. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Abraham, Lech Lecha, Abraham and Sarah, Lech Lecha, Sarah didn't need to be told. Abraham needed to be told. Sarah already intuited it because Sarah was on a higher level of nevuah. When Hashem told Abraham, Lech Lecha, first of all, the question is, why him? Why him? Hashem says Lech Lecha all the time. All the time there's a call koreh for Lech Lecha. But the problem is Hashem doesn't scream. He doesn't need to. Hashem whispers. And if you tune into the right frequency, you'll hear it. Hashem has been saying Lech Lecha since the dawn of time. Avram is the one who actually says, wait a minute, does anyone hear that? And Sarah says, yeah, of course. I've been hearing it for a while. What does Lech Lecha mean? Lech Lecha means go into yourself. Lech Lecha, go into yourself. The longest distance you will ever travel in your life is not from wherever you are in Australia. If you're from Australia, then wherever you are in the US. That's not the longest distance you're ever going to travel. According to Kabbalah and according to Hasidus, the longest distance a man will ever travel is the distance between his head and his heart. You could know something in your mind. You could know you're not a horse, but your heart doesn't allow you to get up and walk. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling each and every single one of us, Lech Lecha, go into yourself. You want to know why? Because you can't go into anyone else. It's only your own Lecha. And every single person has a beautiful Lecha that Hashem is waiting for it to shine bright. I give all of us a bracha that we can have the power of Tacharishon. We should work on ourselves to be able to not have to make so much noise so that we can sit back and watch Hashem split every ocean and every sea and every difficulty we have. And may we all walk together towards our own personal geulas, because I really believe that each and every single one of us has a personal Mashiach, and then there'll be a global Mashiach. May I see all of you very quickly in Eretz HaKadosha, where we will actually be able to bring the Korban Toda, because we're so grateful that it finally happened. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a beautiful, beautiful Shabbos, and I really appreciate this opportunity.
Amen, and thank you.
Dvora, thank you so much. That was so gorgeous. Thank you so much. So beautiful, really so beautiful. I'm gonna contact you later to do this again before
Amazing.
you have to. Thank you so much. This was amazing.
Can I ask a-
Shabbos, everyone?
You know what? We have to do Shmiras Halashon.
Oh, okay.
We